Court. Tell us what happened over the last 24, 48 hours. How did the Pope come in and say, hey, you're no longer a priest?
Well, Steve, this is the culmination of something that's been going on for 21 of the 40-some-odd years that I've been working in pro-life leadership. There are some in the church that don't like what we do. They don't like that we focus on abortion as the main issue. We show people what an abortion is. We're not apologetic. One bishop said, Father Frank, you're too aggressive on abortion. I said, well, when abortion stops being so aggressive on the babies, then you come and talk to me. But, we have compassionate healing ministries and so on. And the fact of the matter is, it's been a 21-year battle. Just like there's a deep state, there's a deep church, and there are those who, just like we see in the political arena, they'll make up stories, they'll launch fake investigations. They've been trying to cancel me for over 2 decades. It hasn't worked. They started by just trying to give me a different assignment. They said, oh, you can't do full-time pro-life work anymore. I said, well, this is a matter of my conscience, and the work is succeeding, and it's saving lives, so I would ask permission to keep doing it. So they couldn't stop that. Then they tried to discredit the organization. They did the usual things, financial questions and whatnot. That didn't work because we've always had clean audits and we publicized them. So then they said, well, the only thing left to cancel this guy is to take away his priesthood itself. So Patrick Zurich, Bishop of Amarillo, he deserves some pushback on this. He's been the ringleader, and they've been trying to complain, but it's just the constant complaint machine, despite the fact that we're doing work that so many of our viewers support. Some of these bishops just don't want to hear any of it. And so they weaponize the procedures within the church, just like we see the Democrats weaponizing procedures within the government to sideline those they hate.
Let me ask you an uncomfortable question. Is because I thought life was a central tenet of the Christian faith and the underpinnings of the Judeo-Christian West, and your focus, really your maniacal focus, which had to happen in order to reverse the slaughter of the innocents. How could that not be a top priority for the hierarchy of the church? And was this effort to remove you basically related to Roe v. Wade being reversed, and all of a sudden you became in the rest of the Right to Life crew became an uncomfortable adjunct? All of a sudden the Democratic left was going to make that a major campaign issue in 2022, and they want you guys to go away, and the way to make you go away is take out the leader of this movement, Father Frank Pavone.
It's partially that, Steve. I think it's related more to the way that Roe v. Wade got reversed, which, as you know well, you and I know, and so many who worked with President Trump. If it weren't for his election, if it weren't for his steadfastness in getting those 3 Supreme Court justices on the bench, this would not have happened. And he told us that in 2016. He said, if I get to appoint 2 or 3 justices, Roe v. Wade will be reversed automatically, because these justices are going to respect the Constitution. Some of these bishops have been angry at me for my support of Donald J. Trump, and for the fact that I told them, all the way up to the Pope himself, I told them I will not back away from supporting the most pro-life president of the United States. That's got them enraged. They know I'm going to continue to support Trump and the policies that all of us believe in the MAGA movement. And so that really is the crux of the matter here.
Have you walk us through, were you confronted before about Trump? Did they tell you to back off? Because one of the things they put out was blasphemous social media posting, right?
Yeah.
Is it because you came on War Room, because of the fact that you supported Trump?
There's the support for Trump. They challenged me about that along the way, several points along the way. Both in both campaigns, I was on the advisory boards for Catholic issues and for pro-life issues. And in the second campaign, they told me, oh, you can't have an official title. I was national co-chair of Pro-Life Voices for Trump, very proudly. And so the Vatican said, oh, no, you can't, priests can't do that. So I said, okay, the campaign is fine with that. They don't, I don't have to have an official title. But then, they were very happy, that I made that change. But then when I continued supporting the president and his policies, then they complained again. I said, well, why don't you be honest with me? It's not about having a title. It's not about being on a committee. It's about you don't want us supporting these policies and this president. So they're not honest, Steve. They're not honest with me. They're not straightforward. They behave like little children. And that's why, I want to say to our viewers, if the work is worthy of support, we got to move forward together, and let's just keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. My board and my staff are behind me 1,000%. We're not going to change, and we're going to keep saving lives, healing wounds, and electing pro-life candidates.
When you're in conversation or in dialogue before this, before they stepped in and removed you from the priesthood, did you ever bring up the fact that Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and I think Dick Durbin and Joe Biden profess Catholics support, the most aggressive form of abortion, plus a whole other raft of really anti-Judeo-Christian West values that they try to jam into the schools every day? Did that conversation ever come up with these bishops and with the Vatican?
Yes, and I never, it's not a dialogue the way that we would understand it, and that's the sad thing about this. The way they've been treating me has been a one-sided narrative. I bring these things up. In fact, I've written an open letter several open letters to the U.S. bishops about the fact that we've got to be more vocal regarding Biden, Pelosi, and their kind of fake Catholics. And I get no response. I try to initiate a dialogue. I put it out there publicly. The voters respond. The folks that are watching us respond, but the bishops don't respond. And I think that part of our pushback here has to be, each person communicating with the bishop in their own diocese and saying, listen, you guys have to get on board here. We're on board. We're with Father Frank and the people that are pointing out these problems. Why don't you get on board with us? And so, Steve, it's been a very one-sided narrative.
What is their problem with President Trump's not the most churchy individual, he'd be the first to admit, but he's had the back of the basic values of our civilization and has taken tough action to support that, particularly the basic tenets of the Catholic Church. What is their problem what is specifically their problem with Trump as you see it?
As I see it, Steve, the problem is their loyalty to their Democrat friends. The bishops are in tight with a lot of the key Democrat leaders, and, they help them out on certain social programs that are important to the church. That's fine, but that doesn't justify giving them a free pass when it comes to abortion. And I think they just don't want to offend their friends. It's as simple as that. There's Democrat loyalty there. But I pointed out to these bishops, the church wouldn't have the freedom that we have today to do what we're doing, including in those other realms, serving the poor and so forth, if it weren't for President Trump's defense of religious liberty. He's done more for the freedom of the church than anybody. And that includes the very existence of ministries like mine. It's thanks to his steadfast defense of religious freedom. So I think the bishops owe it to themselves and to him to take account of what he's done for the church and to stop being, more loyal to the Democrats than to their own church.
What they did to you, it was so dramatic, so bold, and so absolutely dead just wrong. Do you think this is the beginning shot of a real schism in the church?
It could be. I don't want that to happen. In fact, Steve, the Pope himself has been advised that there is a better solution to the Father Frank problem, and that is, put me under a different bishop. And in fact, the Vatican authorized that 3 years ago. Like I said, this has been a long story. People can read the whole detail of it at FrFrankPavone.com. I got the documentation. I got the letters. I'm going to post everything there. I'm just going to expose the whole thing. But 3 years ago, the Vatican said, hey, just, Father, you can get away from Bishop Zurich, who's been causing all this trouble, and go under a more favorable bishop. And there are other favorable bishops willing to receive me. And we came to an agreement. The only problem was then the Vatican said, well, you can only do your pro-life stuff half the time. You have to spend the other half of the time in the diocese. And it's like, you're not getting it. There's a movement here that I'm helping to lead. We've got to end abortion. We've got to overturn Roe v. Wade. We've got to save these babies. We've got to heal the moms that have hurt from abortion. We've got to provide alternatives to abortion. This is a full-time job. And I don't, to this day, they've never explained why they said I could only do it half the time rather than full time. That's the nonsense that's been going back and forth.
The reason that's not, they don't want it full time, they don't want you as leader of this movement. I mean, you're one of the leaders of the most important religious movements in the United States. There's just no doubt about that. What you did was Herculean to reverse Roe v. Everybody said it would never happen. I've talked to people for decades. This said would never happen. It was because of your efforts. If you can hang on for 1 second, Father Frank, we're going to take a short commercial break. What the War and Posse needs to do, what's your next steps, how you can be supported, because I've talked to hundreds of pretty prominent people in this movement in the last 24 hours, and they are a belief that this is a throwdown by the Pope, and it's going to lead to a schism, and that this is going to be, you know, this is only the opening salvo of something that's going to get very nasty, and that people are not going to back down on this at all because they've seen the corruption in the church. I'm going to talk to Natalie here in a minute about the CCP and McCarrick. Steve Cortez has some thoughts on that. So this is, there are literally millions of people that have your back. So what's the next step?
You know, Steve, thank you for that. I want to ask everybody to just do something very simple. Get the full story about this at our website, endabortion.us. You'll see the links there. I'll be updating it with more of what's happening. Just help me to spread the word. This is a matter of, you know, they say, oh, there's no appeal. You're not a priest anymore. And I say there is an appeal to the people of God. So if the listeners and the viewers take the information, take a few minutes to read through it, and then spread it as far as you can. Support us, because we need the bishops to see that there's an outpouring. If they think they can get away with this, we need to prove them wrong. And, you know, it's the same way we respond to a lot of these other problems that we're all facing. So endabortion.us is the website.
What's your social media, and people, in case people want to, if they go to the website, get up to speed to keep up with you 24/7?
Fr Frank Pavone is the address on all the major platforms. Fr Frank Pavone.
Father Pavone, thank you. We're checking in with you this afternoon and tomorrow. Thank you very much, sir.